Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your host and co-host, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Jason Sledgehammer I. Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 107.7 New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Remember to like us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. I'm Jenny Nicasio along with Sean Kelly and Jason I. and Petro. Happy Thursday, boys.
Happy
Thursday.
Boy, I just love that intro.
I do too.
The music
That's
is
a hell
great.
of an intro.
Yeah, for this show, it's perfect.
Well, I'm glad you're here today. We're going to get to it because we only have 54 minutes, and we have a special guest on the show tonight, and he's going to talk to us about a lot of different things. We have John Russell. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Great. He has been a professional psychic for over 50 years. He's a psychic reader, medium, certified tarot card reader, master paranormal investigator, and now published author. He's known internationally, and he provides psychic readings for clients for over 40 countries. For over the last 15 years, he's been a featured guest on many popular radio shows like Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie and the Leak Project. And I'm so happy to have him here. And he's also written a few books, and I'm not sure if he finished one yet, but he has Writing with Ghost, Angels, Spirits of the Dead, and Knock in the Attic. So I want to give a warm welcome to our guest, John Russell. Welcome to Chasing Prophecy.
Thank you so much.
Welcome,
Being here, guys. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. So, John, tell us how you got into the paranormal world. When did you learn that you were a psychic medium?
That's a good question. That happened when I was about 5 years old. And I was sound asleep in bed. And my parents had left a nightlight on in the hallway down the way, so if I had to get up at night, I could see. So in the middle of the night, I wake up all of a sudden completely wide awake. And I thought, well, maybe some noise woke me up, or maybe there's some racket or something. I laid there a little bit listening, and everything was quiet. And I thought, well, this is really strange because I didn't have any grogginess whatsoever. And I was just completely aware, completely wide awake. And I raised up on my elbows in bed and just kind of looked around the room, and I looked down the hallway. And in the nightlight's glow, peering around the doorway in the hallway, was this elderly black gentleman. And I screamed bloody murder because my family's white. We didn't have anyone black living with us. And I presumed somebody had broken into the house. So when I screamed, he walked around the doorway and into the hall, came down the hall toward my bedroom, keeping eye contact with me. And this was not some phantom mist. This guy was every bit as solid as you or I. He was fully dressed. I can tell you what he looked like, what he had on. He had close cropped white hair, a white mustache. He wore a red flannel shirt, khaki pants. He had a black dress belt and black shoes on, and every bit as solid as you or I. And as he got closer, I screamed bloody murder again. As I heard my parents start to come running, he began to get translucent and then transparent. And then kind of like the Cheshire cat almost, he vanished from the feet upward till all that was left was his head, and then that vanished. And about that time, my parents got there. And I told them that there was somebody in the house. And my fright was so convincing that while my mother held me, my father actually went through the house, looked in the closets, looked under the beds, checked the doors and windows, and of course nobody physical was there. And so they tried to convince me that I just had a bad dream and to go back to sleep. And I knew better. I knew that I had seen someone, and then it dawned on me what I had seen, who I had seen. I had seen my first ghost. Now, that elderly black gentleman came for one purpose, and that was to open up the portal to my experiencing to date way over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations, and then to also activate my psychic gift. And I discovered that he had opened that portal up when I began to have these physical manifestations of the paranormal happening. When I say physical manifestations, a lot of people hallucinate things, meditate things, dream things, envision things, whatever. These are things that we've caught on camera. We've recorded them. We've video recorded them. We've audio recorded them. We've caught photographs of them. Other people have witnessed them in my presence. So these are things that are actually literally happening on the physical realm. And to date, like I said, there's been well over 1,000 of these occurrences. And so I began to experience those types of things. And then a short time later, the way that I became aware that my psychic gift had been activated during this occurrence was some friends had come to visit my parents, and they drove up in the driveway, and I didn't know these people. So this car drives up in the driveway. I was out in the backyard playing with some kind of toy, and I ran inside and got my parents. I said, there's somebody in the driveway I don't know. And they said, okay, we'll come look. So they came out and said, oh, those are friends of ours. So they got out of their car and came up, and my parents were standing there, and they were all standing outside talking before they went in the house. So I was standing there with my toy kind of close by, kind of eavesdropping a little bit. And all of a sudden, I had this epiphany, like this vision. And I looked up at these people and I said, y'all just went on vacation. And I said, you took that car that's sitting in the driveway. You drove that car. And I said, you don't have kids with you today, but you have 2 kids, and you took those kids with you on vacation. And their eyes are all of a sudden starting to get wide. And I said, and you stayed in this hotel. It had 2 or 3 stories, and it was painted this color. And it had these trees that looked like this in front, spaced at regular intervals. And then around back, the pool area was blue with white chairs around it. And the guy was just kind of had this weird little smirk on his face, kind of bug-eyed. And he was kind of like looking back and forth at my parents, like, what in the world? And the woman, her jaw was agape. Her eyes were bugged out. She was looking at me like I had cobras growing out of my head. And she looked over at my mom and dad and said, how the hell could he possibly know that? And they said, what do you mean? She said, how the hell could he possibly know this? And my mother said something like, well, you know, kids in their imagination. She said, kids in their imagination. She said, that's exactly what happened. We took that car with our 2 kids, went on vacation, stayed in this hotel that looked exactly like he described with a pool area and everything. And that's what we were coming over to tell you, was about our vacation. How the hell could he possibly have known this? And my dad was like, John, go play. And I was like, yes, sir. Nice to meet you folks. And off I went. And needless to say, they never came and visited my parents again. So that was when I discovered that I had the psychic gift, that I could tell where people had been. I could predict their futures accurately. I could have insights into their minds, their thoughts, their feelings, their circumstances. And then it grew from there.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's, yeah.
Well, John, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Being in the paranormal field and being intuitive and sensitive and psychic, I don't like that word. That's my own personal choice.
Sure.
Did you ever think about why Spirit sent you that black man? I know for your psychic abilities, but did you ever second guess yourself, or did you just continue going at it?
Good question.
Yeah, no, I never second guessed myself. I realized that he had come for that purpose, to initiate all this.
Okay.
And so I embraced it. And not only did I develop naturally, but from an early age, I had a real curiosity about everything religious, paranormal, spiritual, psychology, parapsychology, everything. So in addition to my gift developing normally, I studied everything on the planet that I could find from a very young age. And by the time I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I had read through an amazing amount of books and teachings and literature and all this type of thing. And my quest was, let's discover the truth, because there's a lot out there in religion that does not work. There's a lot in the paranormal that does not work, a lot in spirituality that does not work. Sounds good, but it doesn't work. And so my big deal was, let's find out what does work and what doesn't work. Let's discard what doesn't work, keep what does, and see if we can make it even more accurate, even better, even stronger. And so that's been my life's mission all the way through. And that's why I also became a paranormal investigator. Was I wanted to investigate everything I could, see what I could learn from it, and see what insights it could give me and how that could help me grow, so that I in turn could help others.
So,
Jason, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of feed off of Sean's question a little bit.
Sure.
So when you started to realize you had this gift of psychic abilities, do you think that that's something that people are born with, or do they, like you encountered that spirit? Is it something that happens like, a spirit comes to you and it activates it, or
Right.
do you think it's
Right.
just all natural? Like you have it, but this person doesn't, but this person might be born with it, or you know what I mean? Like
I do, Jason, and that's a good question. I think that everybody is born with some degree of psychic ability. Now, to clarify that, it's like some of us, well, all of us are born with some musical ability, and some of us will sit at the piano and as far as we'll ever get is chopsticks. And then somebody else will be Horowitz, right?
mhm.
So, in my experience, it's been the same way with psychic gifts, paranormal abilities. We all have them to a degree, and we all reach a point where we plateau. So, some people are never going to get past the point where the phone rings and they go, "Oh, that's Aunt Jenny calling," and it is, but that's as far as they'll get. And then other people can have more and varied experiences, be able to accurately predict the future for people, be able to accurately predict future circumstances, and so on and so forth. So we all have it, but it all is all to a degree. And then again, it all depends on how much the person who has it, how much effort they put into it, how much training, effort, and dedication they put into it. I've done this professionally for 50 years next year, and I'm still pushing myself, and I'm still learning, and I'm still seeking, and I'm still trying to get better and better and more accurate and more helpful and more get more of an understanding. And it's nothing that any of us ever master. That's just, it just doesn't occur. But we get to the best degree that we can. We walk in the light that we have, and we try and get that light to the people to help them.
See, I believe. I'm sorry, Jenny. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna get to the comments. That's go ahead and finish your thought.
See, what I believe for me, what happened, long story short, 1983, I was taking a drug called Antabuse, and I died. Okay. And I was pronounced dead for 10 minutes. When I came back, all of a sudden, I started to see things, hear things, and feel things that weren't there. And it really, really bothered me. And then a couple of years later, I mean, I went to priests, I went to ministers, I went to
Right.
pastors, because I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on here. And then I realized someone very dear to me in Florida said to me, she goes, you're considered a walk-in. And I said, what the hell is a walk-in? And she told me, she said, whenever something drastically happens to you or you actually had a near-death experience, your old spirit leaves your body and a new one jumps in. And then when I heard that, then I started to put two and two together. But what's crazy is that I was 21 years old when that happened. And, I can't remember my childhood. I don't. It just comes back in spurts. It's not like I knew where, school and my friends back then.
Right.
It's just like whenever that happened, it was like my past was, erased. Is that anything happened to you like that?
No, it never has, and I'm familiar with the concept of walk-ins. I'm not sure that I entirely buy the concept of walk-ins, but I think that a lot of times when we undergo traumatic experiences, that it does activate our psychic gifts. People have been struck by lightning, become psychic. People like you have had died for a while, come back, their psychic gifts are activated. A lot of other things. People get in car wrecks, and all of a sudden they're psychic. So that I understand. The concept of walk-ins is a little out there for me. I think that maybe what happens is that people undergo trauma, and maybe certain parts of their memory are somehow impaired a little bit from that trauma. And I don't think maybe it's necessarily another spirit or another soul in there. I still think it's you, but you may just not be reconnecting with everything that was there. So that's my take on it. That, and we'll go down to Starbucks and shell out $5 to get a cup of coffee. But
where do you live? We'll go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, John, we have Brad Roberts in the audience, and he wants to know, how do you check a place for ghosts? How would you check a place for ghosts?
Well, what I do, I'm very, very sensitive to those on the other side, and so when I go there, I can always immediately pick up on if there are spirits there or not, and if they want to communicate. I usually don't use many instruments. I don't use EMF meters that much. I don't do EVP that much. I've got ghost boxes. I've got recorders and things, but I don't use them all that much. Um, and the reason for that is I don't have anything against them at all. They're valuable tools. But in my mind and in my way of thinking, I carry on complete two-way conversations with these ghosts, with these spirits. And they're long, and they give me information that can be validated, for example. So for me to use EVP, and I might get 3 words, and we have to play it 15 minutes to agree on what it says, that's regression for me. Okay. So, but the reason I kind of started doing that a little bit more was when I shot a TV pilot for the History Channel. My producer said, which unfortunately never aired. My producer and I became friends, and we continued to work on other TV projects. And he said, listen, he said, would you do some EVP for me? And I said, well, why would I do that? Because that's a regression for me. I have two-way conversations with these spirits in my head, as you know, from shooting the pilot. And he said, yeah, but he said, the person that's watching the program is not privy to that two-way conversation in your head with the spirits. But if they hear, I'm here on the recorder, oh, wow, did you hear that? And it gives them something they can hang their hat on then. So I begin to understand that. So I kind of use it in that manner. But for me, if it's just myself and it's somebody that already has experiences there and they're not needing something that evidentiary, I usually don't use any equipment. It's just me.
He also asked, he's commenting saying the last 2 nights, it has sounded like someone else was walking around the upstairs, but I'm the only one home. This isn't the first time this has happened. And I've never heard voices of any kind. My building was built around 1900. I don't know the history or if anyone died in the building. So that's what he had to say.
Let me address that real quickly. I don't think it's a relative of his. I'm not picking that up at all. I'm picking it up as somebody that was there beforehand, and they want him to know that they're there. And if he will talk to them and say, hey, I hear you. I realize that you're here. Do you have any message for me? And then be receptive. They may give him something and tell him to ask them to watch over the property and to watch over him, because they will do that. One thing I want to address real quick before we move on, people say, well, I just built a new house. How can it be haunted? Listen, every place on this planet has been inhabited by people forever and a day. And if you read the book, The Practice of the Wild, it talks about places that we assume were completely, totally remote, isolated, uninhabited, and yet somebody in some culture somewhere can tell you the history of that place. So there have been people living all over this planet for all these, many, many thousands of years, 10,000 years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. We don't know. And they've come and gone. They've lived and died. There's been all these experiences. They've lived in various places. So that vacant lot where you buy it and clear it and build your house, somebody lived there at some point. Somebody camped there. Somebody maybe had a little clearing and then nature took it back over. But there's no such thing as pristine psychic or paranormal or spiritual on this planet. It's all haunted. It's all inhabited. Okay. So that's what everybody needs to realize.
Cool.
Hey, I want to see your thoughts on something. So when we investigate, I use a spirit box a lot called the S box.
Yeah, I've got one. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. So what I did was I bought the Faraday wallet that blocks out all the radio frequencies and stuff.
Right.
And we seem to get some pretty intelligent responses, and there's been certain people where it even had their tone like to the voice. What's your thoughts on all that? The spirits coming through on the spirit box in that kind of sense.
I believe 100% that's accurate and that it's real, that it's valid, that it's actually happening. What we're experiencing with EVP, ITC, with all of these things, uh, what we have to learn. We're experiencing something that's real. The problem is, it's like a friend of mine asked me the other day, it's like, why noise? You know, we generate that noise either from the ghost box or from a radio on a off station or whatever. And they utilize that to speak, to come through. So that's where our next level of research has to go. It has to be, okay, how and why are they utilizing this noise? What frequency is it that they can use that noise, speak to it? We can't hear them speak, but we play it back and we hear them in that noise. What's going on there? What's that frequency? Where's that at? How do we get there? And once we do, we'll hold two-way conversations in real time, even more so than we do now with like spirit boxes and things. But that's where we're at. Is like, you know, we've come a long way, but we have so far to go in researching all this and getting into it. And of course, the problem with mainstream science and so on and so forth, you know, naysayers, disbelievers, skeptics, all this. And it's hard to pull people together that are qualified, that believe to get into this and to do it. But when we do, that's when we're going to start making some real progress. But yeah, it's absolutely valid. These spirits, for whatever reason, however they're doing it, are able to use these frequencies that are in this noise to communicate in real time. We don't hear them with our ears, but the recorder does. And that's what we have to figure out. But it is absolutely real.
So speaking of the frequencies, so something that I've found, I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but when I review EVPs, I use recording software. You know, I'm a musician, so I use like Logic Pro 10 and stuff like that.
Right.
When I go through and pull up an equalizer, you know how you can like boost your mids, trebles, highs,
Right,
for certain things. Repeatedly, I have not been able to find the frequency that these spirits are on. Like their voices stay the exact same. So it kind of like boggles my mind a little bit. So we have, you know, that giant range. Like I can hear it, but I can't pinpoint
and find it.
Frequency. Yeah, like
and that's what I'm saying is when we find that frequency that they're using somehow,
that's going to be huge.
That's going to be huge. It's going to change the world, because we will then have real-time, two-way spirit communication with long conversations. Now, my suspicion is that when that happens, and I believe someday that it will, but my suspicion is that those frequencies are subject to the same vagaries that radio waves and everything else are. You know, you drive out of range of your radio station, or you have sunspots and you get static when you're listening to the broadcast or whatever. And I had a friend one time that was a ham radio operator, and we would go to his house. I grew up in West Texas. We would be in West Texas, and on a good night, when all the conditions were perfect, we would talk to somebody in Australia, and it sounded like they were right in the room. And we'd have a 15-minute conversation. And then the next night, he could barely reach somebody across town. And so I suspect that a lot of that is we're going to find a lot of that that we have to overcome when we get to the point that we can have that type of two-way communication more reliably. I suspect there will still be that interference there to overcome. So we have a long way to go, a lot of research to go.
Very interesting. John, tell us about your experience you had in a haunted house with your wife in upstate New York.
Oh yeah, we had, well, wherever I go, the paranormal follows me. I'm like, you know, nectar to the butterflies or the bees or whatever. And so she had already had some paranormal experiences there as well. And then when I moved in, of course, it magnified things, intensified things. And we had some really incredible, really marvelous experiences there. And a lot of these I write about in my second book, Knock on the Attic. And it's titled that because shortly after I moved in, I went around and I made sure all the doors were secure. We changed some locks. We updated the alarm system, changed the code, so on and so forth. So we had a completely secure house. And even when the alarm wasn't set, we had the chime on the doors or windows that would chime if anything was open. So we're sitting there one day, and this was a 2-story house with a basement and an attic. And from up in the attic, we hear this loud knocking, like somebody's got a hammer and they're beating on the floor. And my wife looks at me and I look at her and we're like, okay. And we know we're home there by ourselves. We know there's nobody else there. No chime has happened. We keep the doors locked. We know nobody's come in.
Mhm.
And why would they come in and run upstairs to the attic? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check, see what in the world's going on. So to get to the attic, it was on the second floor, and you went down the hallway, and the door to the attic was actually in the bathroom. This was a 200-year-old house. And you opened up that door, went upstairs into the attic, which then stretched the length and width of the house. And so I went up there, and it was ice cold. And so I knew spirits were there, and I looked around. There was nothing there disturbed. And I said, okay, I hear your message. I know you're here. Do you have anything for me? Do you have anything to tell me or to tell my wife or whatever? And I got nothing. So I was like, okay, well, we hear you. You're welcome here. We appreciate you being here. So from that point, it developed to the knocking becoming so loud that the neighbors would hear it in their houses or when they were outside.
Mm.
And I went around the house, looked for anything loose. I went again to the attic, inspected everything. There was nothing that could account for the noise. This would happen when it was completely still, no wind, all that type of thing. And it got so bad that like the neighbor came over one time. We had this delightful restaurant and bar right across the street from our house. We lived in kind of a semi-business area. And I would walk over there and eat and drink and sit there at the bar. And so our neighbor come in, she came up and she said, what in the world are y'all doing over there? Are you remodeling or something? I said, why? And she said, all that loud knocking and banging I hear. And she didn't know that I was a psychic. She didn't know what I did. And she was kind of the town gossip, I guess. So I told her, I said, yeah, we're having some remodeling done and some work done. And she said, so late? And I said, well, sometimes that's the only time the guy can come. So I passed it off that way. And she kind of, okay, whatever. So this knocking continued, and it got to the point that it sounded like somebody took a sledgehammer and was banging against the rafters. That's how loud it got. And when it got to that point, I went up and I neglected to mention there was a pile of lumber up there laying on the floor against the wall. And when it got that loud, I went up there, and the pile of lumber had been moved away from the wall, which is astonishing in itself. And underneath the lumber, then, I presume, laying there on the floor was this little lace heart, about 2 inches by 2 inches, and old, very, very old lace. And I saw that, and I said, well, thank you for this gift, and whoever left this, I bless you, and I hope you're well. And I pushed the lumber back, took the lace heart, which I still have today with some other reports I've been given. And when that happened, the knocking quit and never happened again.
That's a fascinating story.
It's cool as hell.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was really great.
So, John, I think
go
you would
ahead.
like this one. Well, my personal house is haunted. Sean could validate this. We've had everything from poltergeist to residuals. But something that's really cool, and I have video footage from over the years, is at random, my front door, which is very, very heavy, will undeadbolt and swing open, usually like 3 times 45 minutes apart, just a random, the most recent was, I think, like 2 months ago. And, we catch it on cameras. We have cameras in the house, and it's pretty cool, but we can never figure out who it is or, exactly, we try all kinds of things, but I think it's just like a residual.
Well, let me tell you too, I think sometimes, Jason, that, I say the other side has 2 modes of communication. One is, listen to me, this is going to save your life, which I've experienced many times. Or you need to do this, here's some guidance for you, or whatever. That's one mode of communication. In other words, what we would term meaningful communication. The other form of communication is, hey, I'm here. Just want you to know I'm hanging around. Right. And that's it. Nothing more important than that. And the analogy for that is, look at our lives. If we're sitting waiting at the bus stop by ourselves and somebody comes up and sits down, we're going to look at, hey, how you doing? Yeah, hi. Well, it sure is hot today. Yeah, man, it's really, what are you doing? Well, I've been out shopping, and, where are you going? Well, I'm going home now. And that's it. We're just connecting with another human being, making small talk, just getting that compassionate interchange of energy that we need to survive. And I think a lot of it is the same way with spirits. Are just like, hey, just want you to know I'm around. I'm here. Just letting you know I'm dropping in, and some of those spirits choose to stay with us for a while, and some of us kind of pass through. They kind of come along and, okay, here I am, and I'm going to hang around a while, and now I'm gone. And I've had a lot of spirits that have stayed with me, spirits I know and recognize since I was a small child, and are still with me to this day. And then I've had others that have kind of come into my life as I've moved and have stayed with me, and some have come into my life then and then have left or stayed behind when I moved. So I think a lot of it's just, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I have a question.
Text messages from the other side, if you will.
Hey, John, I have a question real quick.
Sure.
Whenever you do a tarot reading on somebody,
Right.
do you just, when you flip the cards up, do you actually feel what's coming from the card, or do you go by the definition of the card?
I never go strictly by the definition of the card, because
Good.
part of being able to do any type of reading is to follow your intuition. And
Sweet.
but there's a humorous example that I'll give you from that, Sean. That's a great question. I had when I had just turned about 17, 18, I had developed a reputation already. I started reading professionally when I was 18, and I had developed a pretty good reputation. And people would drive 200 miles one way to get a reading with me at the time. And these ladies came to me, and I was doing the reading, and I was using the tarot. I like the tarot. It's a beautiful thing. I'm an artist. It's a beautiful piece of artwork, and I believe it has intrinsic psychic power, spiritual power as well. So I was using the deck, and the first rattle out of the box, here comes the death card, and they both went, ah! And what happened was, that was one of the main questions that they had come to ask. They had this relative that was ill, and their question was, are they gonna die? Are they gonna be okay, or whatever? And here comes the death card. So this is the prime example of not going by book interpretations, because I asked them why the reaction. They told me, and I said, no, listen. I said, the death card has many meanings, a literal death, but it has figurative death. It has other meanings as you grow and experience education as a psychic and as a reader. You learn that a card can have 20, 30 meanings. And I said, what you have to understand here is that this simply means a passing away of something, not the person and not an individual, but of a circumstance. And so they were like, oh, well, thank God, thank God. And then come to find out in the reading, I was able to tell them that I saw the person recovering, getting better, and so on and so forth. And through feedback, that's what happened. So you learn the rules to break the rules, as the old saying goes. You learn the book meanings of everything to guide you, to help you when you're a beginner and to help you get there. And then if you advance at all, then you have to go with intuition. You have to be led by spirit. You have to be led by your own guidance, your own intuition, and you have to be able to go way outside those boxes sometimes. And I remember one time I was reading for a friend of mine over the phone that was far away, and I had this particular tarot deck that this one card in it had a guy with a helmet on with these horns on, kind of like a Viking helmet. And I was looking at this, and I said, this is the guy you're dating right now. And I described the guy physically, and she said, yes, that's him. And I kept sitting there dwelling on this card, and it was like, I just can't get it. And I told her, I said, I have to ask you something. I said, I never tell my clients what cards I'm looking at, because they're going to go, oh my God. And so I don't do that. But Sean knows. So
yes.
I have to tell you this, and I have to ask you this question. I said, I'm looking at this card, and this guy's wearing a helmet, and it has horns on it, but the horns look like teeth. Why do they look like teeth to me? And she laughed so hard she couldn't even talk for about 30 seconds. She goes, the guy I'm dating's a dentist.
Oh,
okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
you have to have that flexibility in the readings. You can't go in with this mindset that this is going to mean this. Sometimes it does. A lot of times it doesn't. So.
Can you do something without cards? I mean, if I say, okay, what's the next guy I'll be dating?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I knew it.
Yep. Sometimes
we were placing bets.
Sometimes I put the cards out and never even look at them. So yeah, I can do readings without cards. I do investigations without any types of things. But let's see, Jenny, for you coming up, since you asked, there is going to be a real good romantic opportunity for you around September, October this year. So not that far away.
Ooh.
Now, this is going to be something that if you miss it or mess it up or whatever, it's like, well, John told me September, but I met this really hot guy that he has a great beard and he smells great. So I'm going to forget John. I'm going with this guy.
Yeah.
We can blow our predictions, right? Even if they're accurate, we can miss them. But your next romantic opportunity comes around September, October this year, and be aware and open to it. Be more emotionally vulnerable than you would normally be, okay? Because you have a pretty good ability to project a persona, okay, to guard yourself, to put the walls up.
Oh, yeah.
And so you need to be a little more emotionally vulnerable than you would normally be. Not naive, not gullible, not you understand what I'm saying. And look for a person that immediately connects with you on that intellectual, emotional, spiritual level. Okay. And then everything else, all the physical, all the fireworks, everything else comes after that. That's
there you go.
There we go.
Yeah, that's going to be the first opportunity.
Anything in my career?
Steady as she goes for a while.
Am I setting off any vibes?
Jason, you are. You're a character, man. I just all of you. I love all of you. You're all terrific. You're all great. I wish we could all sit and drink beers. But yeah, Jason, you've got some interesting opportunities coming your way this year, and this carries forward for probably 2 or 3 years to come. There's some doors that are going to just open, not necessarily because of anything that you do, but you'll just become aware of them. They're just going to open, and it'll be good for you to walk through these doors.
Wow, that's really interesting because there's some things in the works right now.
Yeah.
That I'm just waiting on to progress to the next level. And then you said like 2 or 3 years. I actually have a plan for something.
There you go.
In 2 to 3 years.
There you go.
That's really cool.
So and like I say, the doors are going to open. You just got to walk through them. You just got to keep doing what
I'm ready.
Stay focused. Don't get distracted, and don't settle. Don't settle for less. Don't let somebody talk you down out of what you want to do.
All right, my turn.
Thanks.
All right, let's go, Sean.
My turn.
Let's go.
My turn now. Now, I don't want no questions. I just want to see what you feel about me. What's going on? Please.
Sean, you have a marvelous energy about you. You're so empathetic, and you have the depth to you, and you have this, there's this pain there, like a lot of us experience that have done spiritual work and have reached out and have seen the things that people go through and the things that we've experienced ourselves. And there's times you question that, and you question yourself, and you second guess yourself. And you say, well, am I really getting this right? Should I really, am I contributing anything? Should I be doing this? And the answer is absolutely yes. The second guessing of yourself comes from not being able to make the difference that you always want to make. And so when that happens, you look at yourself and say, well, did I fail? Do I really have the depth of gift that I think I do? Am I really making the difference that I think I am? And I understand that, but the answer is yes. Look, we can't change people. What we can do is give people tools, and we can show them how to use those tools, but then it's up to them to put them into practice. So don't ever feel like a failure when you've done something for someone and it's flopped. That's on them. That's not on you. Does that make sense for you?
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Rob.
Interesting.
All
So
right.
getting back to other things.
Yes.
What are your feelings on crop circles?
I believe that they are. Now this gets really complicated because I wrote about this. And, and writing with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead. I think that some of them are caused by alien presences, by UFOs. And others, I think, are caused by this intelligence that we do not know who or what is yet, and we don't completely understand yet. but that it does communicate with us, as in the example of in my book, where I asked for that to happen. Now, what happened was I had read a book by a noted crop circle researcher, and he had done this experiment. He said, well, if these are made by intelligent beings, we should be able to somehow communicate with these intelligent beings. And I thought, well, that makes sense. And he said, okay, he's looking out his office window and he has this patch of grass. And he said, I want this shape to appear in this patch of grass within a certain amount of time. And it did. And I thought, wow, okay, there we go. So I got to try this. So I had scheduled myself a day off for my clients, and I got out on my motorcycle. And before I left that day, I said, okay, if these intelligences can hear me, and if you can respond to me, then I want a pattern over here in the lawn in a certain amount of time, and so on and so forth. And then I left for the day to ride. And then in riding that day, everywhere I went, I had some of the craziest, most bizarre, wildest paranormal experiences that I had ever had, physical manifestations. And I did see a crop circle, but not where I wanted. It didn't appear in my yard, but it appeared on the highway as I was riding. And what was so funny was there were many manifestations that occurred that day that let me know, okay, somebody heard me, somebody's doing something, somebody's communicating something. And some of these things occurred in things that are grass. For example, bamboo. Bamboo is classified as a type of grass. And I had this really dramatic experience there. But then when I was riding from one state park to the other, as I was visiting state parks during the day, one thing that had happened here, I live in Florida, and Florida is like one of the windiest states on the planet. It's really crazy. When we moved here, I was amazed at how windy it is. And it can be a beautiful, clear day, blue skies, sunshine, no storms around anywhere, and the wind will blow you off the bike. So what was amazing that morning, in all these parks I had gone to and all these experiences I had had, there was not a leaf stirring on a tree anywhere. It was absolutely, totally, completely still, which made these manifestations even more amazing. And that struck me odd. And the only wind that day, and I realized it when I saw it, I was riding my bike to the next state park, and over in a patch of grass by the road, all of a sudden, this wind came up, kind of like a dust devil or something, and it flattened this grass into a perfect circle as I rode by. And I was like, oh, there's my crop circle. Didn't come where I asked for it, but there it is. And so I do believe in the reality of them. And it's like everything else. We're not sure of who or what the intelligences are behind it, but they can and do communicate with us. And it's more research that we have to get in depth into to really figure out.
Yeah. Getting back to the UFO and crop circles, what are your feelings on all the recent reports on the news about the UFO videos that the military have and the Senate's going to be doing that reports? What are your views on that?
Well, look, we all know they're real. You know, I've had experiences up close, personal, and daylight with witnesses. And so we all know that they're there. I think most of us have realized that they're there. They're real for a long time. And we realize that our government has put a snow job over on us. As far as the videos have come out, yes, they're absolutely authentic. But what they're doing is spoon feeding us the blurry, low res. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw the other day someone that I know is completely credible, talking to someone that I know is completely credible, state that they have 4K high-res photos of these crafts 50 feet away from the fighter jets.
Okay. Real quick, we have a caller.
Okay.
Let's see if I can turn the volume up. Go ahead, Kelly. Kelly, can you hear us? Kelly, can you hear us? Go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead with your question.
So I just had a question just relating to like the readings, like what my future predicts or anything like that.
Okay. We've got such a short time here, so this is going to be the down and dirty version, you know. But You may not be planning this or it may not have dawned on you, but I would consider a move within the next year or two. There needs to be a physical change for you, and a move looks like the really appropriate, really great thing for you to experience. And there's something there that you need, that you're in a rut, you're not achieving what you need to achieve. And somehow the key to that is either more education, like going back to school, or stepping up into a different field, like moving up into management perhaps, or doing something of that nature. There has to be some type of progress, some type of promotion of yourself there, but really consider the move. Does any of that make sense for you?
A move, Kelly. He said that you should, you might be considering a move. Is there any other questions that you have? Kelly, you still there?
Did we?
I think we lost her.
her.
Kelly?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
Oh, good.
there's a little bit of a delay, so I apologize.
There's a little delay. Is there any other questions you have?
Do you see any kids in my
Any
future?
kids in her future?
Yes, one.
One? There. He said he sees one child.
12 of them.
12?
Gonna beat the African woman out for the world record.
12. Yep. 12 kids.
12 kids. There you go, Kelly.
After 10, you don't have to pay taxes on anything.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We have another caller coming in.
All right.
Okay. Let me get that. Hello? They must have hung up. Hello? Oh, I got to stick them on. Caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Maybe they got psyched out.
I like that.
Caller? Hello? They must have hung up.
This
Hey,
guy
John.
might be real. It's a little too creepy.
Yeah. Very
Hey,
creepy.
John. I
Yes.
have one more question for you.
Sure.
This is for our viewers out there, our listeners, everybody.
Okay.
What does the message that Spirit has for us today?
That is a very timely and a very good question. The message that Spirit has for us today is compassion is number one. Getting the truth out is the right there with it. And I think the main thing right now, above everything else, is that we have to realize that we have to band together and we have to work together. Egos have to go. Dogma has to go. Ritual has to go. Tradition has to go.
Wait a minute,
And if
caller.
we accomplish anything, we have to unite our spiritual entities together to defeat what's out there right now, because it's pretty dark out there right now. And we have to unite our spiritual energies together to do that.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupting. We have one more caller. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead, caller.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Just have a question for John Russell, actually, too. As a tarot card reader, do you have, I know you guys said you have, like, intuition, but do you actually have, like, a voice behind it? Because I know a lot of mediums or tarot card readers claim that they have, like, almost like a spirit guide.
Oh, absolutely. I believe in the intrinsic ability of the cards themselves, but I'm led by my guides, by the spirit energy that I have, by my psychic gift, by the guides of the people that I read for. There's a vast network there. That's the tarot cards are just one part of the link in the chain.
There you go.
Nice.
Nice.
Any,
Good question.
any other questions, John, before I hang up on you?
Yeah, I just want to know if, can I get, like, a quick reading just to see if you can sense anything?
Let's see. I don't. It's really strange. There's this, like this kind of void around you right now, where like, and let me explain that a little bit better. What I'm saying, it's like it wouldn't surprise me if you just completely pulled away from the life you're living and went off and did something completely different. It's like there's almost this disconnect there with you. to just, people say like, man, I want to do something else. I want to go someplace else, be something else. I just want to leave it behind and go. And that's almost the feeling that I'm getting around you right now. And I think if you do decide to do that at some point, it'll be good for you, that change of pace would be good. And you can kind of reinvent yourself and kind of really connect more with what you feel like you really are called to be and what you really want to be doing, and exercise some of those creative gifts and things that you have inside. Does that make sense for you?
Does that make sense, John? He must have hung up.
John went away.
Dang. Why
He'll
did they
probably
hang up on you?
I don't know.
Oh no,
maybe it's the delay.
Maybe it's
Could
delay.
be.
Yeah, there's a delay from the broadcast to the streaming services.
Right.
Like 3 seconds, isn't it?
No, it's more than that.
Yeah. Well, he can go back and listen.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have anything? What do you think about anything for 2021 this year? Since you're a psychic for the nation, do you see anything strange? 2022, anything like that?
Oh Lord, 2020 and 2021's been strange enough and weird enough. I think I'm going to be real disappointed in what the government presents us as far as disclosure. I think that there is the opportunity for us as the year progresses, though, to kind of press things forward and maybe on our own develop something or discover something in that regard. I think that now that everything's opening up, people are getting back together. This is a great opportunity for us to raise our spiritual consciousness together, reconnect, like I was talking about, group together, get our power back together, and start fighting some of the darkness that's out there and get back on an even keel. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, because I think both parties always abandon us. One may be better than another for a short period of time, but it's like I always tell everybody, it doesn't matter who you vote for, go see what the price of milk is at the grocery store. It doesn't trickle down. It doesn't help the common folk, so to speak. And so I think more than ever before, we need to realize that people have protested, that hadn't worked. We've rioted, that hadn't worked. We've voted, that hadn't worked. We've done this, we've done that. But you know what's missing in all of this, and the voice that's missing in all of these things? The spiritual power. When we come together in a meaningful way, link that power up and release it and use it. And you have to learn how to do that. It's not automatic.
Mm-hmm.
You don't open the prayer book and go blah, 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 amen, and close it, and things change. It doesn't happen, right? But you have to be taught how to do that. You have to learn how to work together and to release that power. And that's where our hope is. And what's been absent in all of this, you don't see any of the big spiritual leaders. You don't see any of the churches. You don't see anybody coming out and saying, hey, we got this. It's okay. And so there's this big lapse there in our spiritual life. And we need that reintegration. We need that reawakening, but we need it in a meaningful way that works. Like I say, you don't open the prayer book, read it, shut it, everything's okay. You don't get out the tarot cards, lay out a spread and go, okay, I'm good now. It just don't work that way. It takes learning, understanding, the ability to practice these things. And there are some people that have the ability to connect with this, to utilize this, to make this happen. And there are some people that just don't. And the people that have the ability to make that happen need to get together and focus, and we need to start working on making this thing better. The problem that always occurs when that happens, ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I want to be the center of attention. I want to be the one that calls the shots. I want this technique instituted. I want us to use that and not this. I want us to meet at my house, not his house, not her house. And so we have to get past all of that.
Don't mean to interrupt you, John, but we're going to have to wrap it up. Where can someone find you to get a reading?
If they want information about me and to get a reading, go to johnrussell.net. And it's got all the information there that you'll need. It's got over 80 client testimonials, my credentials, all kinds of things there, the way to pay and so on and so forth, schedule your reading, all that's there at johnrussell.net.
Great. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight. It was great to hear you. So make sure you like us on all the platforms. It was a great night Thanks again, John,
Yes.
for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you,
and
John.
It's been delightful.
Thank you, John.
I appreciate
Very
it
nice
so
Thank
much.
you.
talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Chase and Prophecy. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.